So our combined balance sheet for all fund types as of March 31st, 2020, the total is $392,284,393. Next slide, please. Combined balance sheets for our trust funds. Expendable trust is $3,964,497. Our non-expendable trust is $92,164,018. Our DB trust is $106,513,600. DC trust is $2,996,862 for a total of $222,720,608. Next slide, please. Our revenues as of March 31st is down just slightly, negative 4.76. For March 31 totals is $44,120,255 for revenue. Expenditures is $41,436,499. $2,683,756. I will note as of last week, we did our variance reports for Secretary Mazie, and we're 25% under budget at this time. So given that our revenues are down slightly, but our budget is also under budget at this time of 25%, we're probably pretty good, and thankful that we are under budget 25% at this point. Next slide, please. So our combined statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances. Our total operating revenues as of March 31 is $8,351,374. And our total fund balance as of March 31 is $207,098,365. Next slide. So this month there's 2 pages of wildlife contributions. So if you go to the bottom of the second page, our total for contributions is $29,709. That's not me.
What is that?
I don't know what it is.
Sounds like it's in our office. I don't know.
That's the pizza delivery man.
I'm embarrassed to say this, but that's my doorbell dinger. I forgot to, when somebody comes down the driveway, I'll get it off. Sorry.
I did ask, this month we would have had a finance committee where we had the bank come in and talk about investments. And so I did ask them to just give us an updated report as of March 31st, since we wouldn't be meeting. And total for the last 3 months, we're down in our investment funds of 12.83%.
I'm sorry, Amanda, could you say that again, please?
Yes. So I asked the BOK to give us a report. This is the month that we would normally meet, but given that we were already going to be doing the Zoom meeting and it was out of extraordinary, we are going to meet next month. But I asked them to go ahead and give me an abbreviated report so that I could report to you all for March 31st. And so for the last 3 months, our investments are down 12.83%, or I'm sorry, net of fees, 12.49% for the last 3 months. And for the fiscal year, it's a little over 4%. And that's all I have.
Any other questions? No, I ask for a motion.
I'm John Grondike. I make a motion that the finances
Motion
shall
by
be
Grondike.
received.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Brewster.
Aye.
Commissioner Barwick.
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes. Commissioner Hughes.
Oh, hang on. I put him on mute because we could hear him going up and down the stairs. Can you take it off?
On the lineup here.
There he was.
Sorry, I gotta find him.
There he is.
There he is.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Commissioner
you,
Gaddis.
Commissioner Hughes. Next item on the agenda.
Wait, Bill.
Commissioner Gaddis.
Aye.
Commissioner Zeltz.
Aye.
Commissioner Grondike.
Aye.
Commissioner Holder.
Aye.
Commissioner Mabry.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is a presentation, consideration of vote to approve, take other action on a donation of $10,172.50 from Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever Oklahoma chapter. Laura McIver and Bill Dickens, I believe. Bill, Laura?
Good morning.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, kick us off, Bill.
Yeah, good morning. It's a pleasure to be able to introduce one of our long-standing partners and friends of the Wildlife Department, Miss Laura McIver with Pheasant Forever, Quail Forever. Before I get to the donation, I'm just going to brag on Laura a little bit. I attended the state convention in February that her and her staff ran, and it was an awesome event, and a lot of it is kudos to Laura and her leadership. So job well done, Laura. With that, I will turn it over because I think she wants to talk about some of the details on the donation. Go ahead, Laura.
Thank you, Bill. And yes, I am grateful for the relationship that we have with ODWC and the support that both organizations give each other. So I concur with you. Thank you so much. So the donation amount that you see of the $10,121.50 is actually a compilation of 6 different chapters that have contributed funds for various projects. What these will do, this amount of money, for those of you who don't know about the 3-to-1 match with the Pittman Robertson Fund, it will be used to match grant monies that are available. And so that will consequently actually fund $44,486 worth of projects meant for quail management throughout Oklahoma. So it's pretty exciting stuff. When you look at the donations on the next screen, you will see that there are a variety of donations that represent areas of Oklahoma that aren't traditionally considered quote unquote quail country. And this is actually due to a focus that a couple of years ago, we realized that we can still keep doing things. And I have chapters out in Western Oklahoma who are absolutely in the Panhandle Northwest and Southwest that are working towards, improving habitat, et cetera, for quail. However, the huge need is in South and Southeastern Oklahoma in the eastern side of the state. And these are areas that I hear all the time where they say, there's no quail there, but yet there really are. And if we can show folks, our landowners who represent 97% of the land owned in Oklahoma, we can hopefully demonstrate that yes, with proper management techniques, you can actually have lots of quail. And so each of these donations by Central Oklahoma 89er chapter, for Kaimishi chapter, Southeastern Oklahoma chapter, and the Wichita Mountains chapter, all of these chapters have donations going towards either equipment or projects that represent quail management in that part of the state. I'm excited because there are a couple of projects that are new. Warika WMA and Deep Fork WMA are both represent new areas that we are focusing on and trying to improve some of the habitat that's in those areas. And they actually, Cross Timbers has been on the plate for quite some time. And then we've had Dakota Christian, who's really worked hard to elevate the habitat, work with the timber companies and that type of thing down in southeastern Oklahoma. Some outstanding work that he's done as well. that represent a wide swath of southeastern Oklahoma that we're really excited to be able to hopefully be able to show folks that yes, it's not impossible. You can bring quail back, and that they will be a great representation of that. So that's what these donations are for, and I'll turn it back over to y'all.
Laura, I have a question. This is John Zelps. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Did they open? I'm sorry, I read the material, but can't remember. Has the Wichita Mountains Wildlife Refuge been open to quail hunting yet?
I don't think so.
It's all draws right now, but be a great place to hunt if we could ever get it open.
Well, that's more federal, on the federal level. So I think it would be a matter of working with those folks and being able to see if that's something that's possible in the future. Right now, I really want to focus on a lot of these areas that with the department that we can get that 3-to-1 match on, because it really expands our opportunities to be able to do some effective work. So
very good.
I haven't focused on the refuge, but it's on my task list.
No, thank you very much.
Along those lines, Commissioner Zelps, though under the new administration, we have had expanded hunting, and we're still working on expanded fishing opportunity on all the refuges across, and the hatchery, Tishomingo National Hatchery across Oklahoma. So we got some additional elk tags in the Wichita Refuge to go through our controlled hunt this year, for example, and we're working on some additional expansions. We've got some expanded turkey and deer hunting in particular at most of the refuges across the state.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Any other discussion?
I'd make a motion to accept Laura's, her organization's generous gift, $10,172.50.
I'll second.
Motion second, motion by Commissioner Zells, second by Barwick. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Brewster?
Aye.
Commissioner Barwick?
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes?
Aye.
Commissioner Gaddis?
Aye.
Commissioner Zelps?
Aye.
Commissioner Grondike?
Aye.
Commissioner Holder?
Aye.
Commissioner Mabry?
Aye. Next item on the agenda is vote to approve or amend a donation from a refurbished 2013 Mack truck tractor from Grondike Transport Inc. Barry Bolton. Barry on here, Barry.
He is somewhere.
Oh, he's muted.
Can you guys hear me?
There we can.
All right. Good morning. Agenda item 10 asks for your vote to approve or take other action on the donation of a Mack truck tractor from Grondike Transport Inc. I'd like to introduce Chaz Patterson, who's our Northwest Region Fisheries Supervisor. Chaz worked closely with Commissioner Grondike to secure this generous donation. Chaz, are you on?
Yeah, thank you, Barry. We had a semi that was 22 years old that was starting to get pretty worn out, and we were looking to replace it this year. And Commissioner Grondike found out that we were in the market for a new truck. And anyway, he contacted me and began asking, exactly what types of equipment, how big of loads we haul with this thing. And anyway, he felt like he had a truck that would work pretty well for us. And anyway, last month he called and said that he had it ready. It's this truck here in the picture that you see. It's a 2013 Mack. And I tell you what, Commissioner Grondike, I know he keeps all his trucks in great shape. And when I saw this thing, I was just completely blown away. It looks brand new. He completely refurbished it, put new tires on it, repainted it, new chrome bumper, reupholstered seats. I think it's going to be a great truck for us, and it'll do anything and everything that we're going to need up here hauling heavy equipment to do construction projects in the Northwest. So anyway, I want to say thank you to Commissioner Grondike. your unbelievable generosity and your continued support for the agency. And if the commission has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
There's only one thing missing on that truck. It doesn't say Big John anywhere.
Well, thanks, Chaz. I'd like to thank Commissioner Groendijk for his generous donation. And I want to assure you that Chaz's cell phone compressed that photo. We were 6 feet apart. Doesn't quite look like it. I would, at this time, if there are no questions for Chaz or for me, I'd ask for your vote to accept this generous donation. And perhaps Commissioner Groendijk would like to say a few words. Commissioner, we can't thank you enough.
Well, hope it works out well. I think the truck's well matched for the job we need done there, moving the dozer and the track hole around, and that should give you a lot of years of good service, hopefully.
Thank you, sir.
Good. Very nice, John. Thank you for that.
Chairman, I'd like to make the motion that we accept this amazingly generous gift from Commissioner Groendijk.
I'll second.
And a second.
Thank you. Discussion, call for roll.
Commissioner Brewster,
Aye.
Commissioner Barwick,
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes,
Aye.
Commissioner Gaddis,
Aye.
Commissioner Zells,
Aye.
Commissioner Grondike,
Aye.
Commissioner Holder,
Aye.
Commissioner Mabry.
Aye. Next item on the agenda is the director's report. Katie Strong.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through the director's report, but it was emailed out to everybody last night, I believe. I apologize for my tardiness and not getting it out more in advance, but when I got the call midweek last week that the governor wanted to take his 2 boys turkey hunting for a quick little break over the weekend, I dropped everything and started scrambling on that priority. And so I am happy to report that the governor was able to harvest a bird down in Harmon County on a day that was 102 degrees on Saturday. So interesting hunt. We didn't get his boys in a bird, but there's always a couple more days left if we can break them away. So you can see there in the report that was emailed out, and a lot of times I'll sort of winnow this director's report down from all the information that I get from all the other divisions about what's been happening, because I don't want to bore you with 6 or 7 pages of details, but I thought it was important this go around to keep all the details in there. So you can see you've got a rather lengthy director's report this time, but I wanted you to have it all so that I could really emphasize the fact that our staff, this agency, our staff in particular, have done an amazing job under these coronavirus conditions of keeping things running and keeping business as usual for our sportsmen and sportswomen out there. So that's why you will see the long list of things. Again, I won't go through it line by line. I'll let you do that. See if you have any questions of us. Corey is on here, and we appreciate Corey's work and continue to monitor the legislature. They essentially have been on really low work status, not completely shut down over the course of this past couple of months. And anything that they do from here on out, we're told will be, and they did sort of reconvene today under some really stringent rules of social distancing and proxy voting and several other things that they've done to adapt. We're told they're really just going to focus on priority bills. It's mostly going to be budget, maybe a really small list of a few other things. We don't expect any wildlife issues to pop up during this time, but one never knows. We don't believe we started the session with anything that would probably qualify in these circumstances as a priority bill. We had a request bill out there to sort of take what the really specific and outdated language on trapping out of statute so that we can handle it by regulation of the commission. That's a pretty minor bill compared to everything else that they've got to get done. So we'll, of course, just look to try to push that next legislative session. We don't expect there'll be much else going on when it comes to wildlife. I am pleased to report that the newly appointed commissioner that will soon take Commissioner Grondike's place come July has made it through the Senate committee confirmation process. Still has to be confirmed by the full Senate, which couldn't be done until they started coming back in this week. It's usually the committee where you start having complications and lots of questions and stuff. And he did get a few questions during that confirmation process, but handled everything just fine and got through with a unanimous vote of the Senate Ag and Wildlife Committee. So Chad Dillingham is well on his way. With that, I'm just going to scan through and see if there's anything else critical that I should bring up. But
JD, this is John Zelps again. If for some reason the Senate didn't bring up his confirmation, Mr. Grondike would have to hold over, would he not?
Yes, he could, unless the governor were able to scramble, appoint somebody else and get it through the process before they adjourn. That would be another.
Well, no, I don't think the Senate will turn him down. I just hope they don't forget about him. Is what I'm getting to.
Yeah, we won't. And when I say we, I mean Corey in particular, won't let him drop that ball. So, and the governor's office is usually pretty good about constantly reminding them of here's what you've got left. When are you going to get it scheduled so we can get it through? So,
all right, very good.
They did say these executive nominations are part of the priority for them to get done this session. So that's why, even though they weren't working on many substantive bills over the past couple of weeks, they did make a commitment to start working these nominations through the committee process.
JD, one question, during this COVID deal, has our licensing numbers held up pretty well?
Yeah, so it's interesting to look at license sales, and you can slice it and dice it a lot of different ways. But last time I checked, we actually were seeing an increase in sales overall this year compared to last year. We were seeing a very slight decrease, like 1% in license revenue. So license numbers up, license revenue a little bit down. When you start cutting into that to figure out what that is, it's because sales to non-residents have gone down because people can't travel as much out to other states. And so we charge more for a non-resident license. And so that's why we're seeing a slight revenue dip. But with a negative 1% license revenue, that goes to show you that our resident sales have really filled the gap.
I read that several states had an increase.
Yeah.
They thought people are at home, they're bored, and they think, golly, I need to get my hunting license.
Yeah, and I should mention too that it's taken a lot of work of a lot of staff to help push that here in Oklahoma as well, but particularly our folks in I&E division. We've been working hand in hand and almost on a daily basis. They're pushing something out on social media or on an email to all of our constituents, encouraging people, and they look for sort of different things to stress, to try to key in on. You've got school kids at home, get them outdoors and run them through this plant ID process, or show them how to go pick mushrooms, or participate in our outdoor bio blitz where you report on your app what kind of birds you're seeing. And so all kinds of activities. And of course, we're pushing more than anything for them to get out and go fishing, take somebody fishing for the first time, that kind of all good stuff.
JD, has any progress been made with the federal match, maybe reducing it or waiving it for the remainder of the year?
Yeah, no progress yet. The conversations we've had, by the way, I just was the newly appointed member to represent the Southeast states on the Joint Task Force, it's called. So it's a Fish and Wildlife Service, state director committee that gets together periodically and talks about how we spend all the federal aid dollars in the country. So we had a meeting last week of the Joint Task Force, talked about several of these things that could provide relief, lowering the match requirements, extending the deadlines to expend the money, several different things. And Fish and Wildlife Services pretty much convinced that that'll take a legislative fix, that they don't have the power to fix it because of the statutory language as an agency. But we and our national organizations are all at work right now on trying to get language slipped into the next stimulus package that Congress may pass that would hopefully provide some relief for that. And we're also working all states to build a list of infrastructure projects or outdoor wildlife conservation-based projects that might create jobs to go into that stimulus package as well. You think about, for example, if we could get a giant slug of money to renovate hatcheries completely at all of our hatcheries, that would put a fair number of people to work, particularly in those rural areas of Durant and otherwise. So we're working on both of those angles through the at the congressional level right now.
You know how much the revenue's off for lack of non-residents coming to turkey hunting season this year and all?
We can look at that in particular at the turkey sales license, and I might even be able to pull it up here or after the meeting if I can't get it because we're sharing our screen. But last I looked, it's a pretty significant dip in, I want to say like 30% down in non-resident turkey license sales. But again, we had an increase in resident turkey license sales too. It's just so there's a revenue decline, but maybe an increase in actual numbers of license sales, but I'll pull that up. And again, overall of our licenses, we were at about a -1% revenue. And
one positive out of this whole deal is next year's PR fund will be the biggest ever.
And ammunition sales lately that should boost our federal grant money. Of course, the match requirements are sometimes a challenge for us, so we'll have to figure out how to plug that gap. And I think, Mr. Chairman, that's you'll notice there in the director's report on law enforcement as well. Our wardens have been busy at work. Thank goodness in a lot of ways for our new online licensing system and app and everything, is people didn't have to come into the office to buy a license. Game wardens are able to check licenses without having to physically grab a license out of somebody's hands. They can stay apart using their law enforcement app. They can just ask for some key information, pull them up, see if they have a license or not. The game wardens have had a lot of folks donate PPE for them to be able to do their job, masks, gloves. I know a lot of local, or not a lot, but a couple of local distilleries or Oklahoma-based distilleries have produced hand sanitizer and donated it to our game wardens. And so some great stories there. And you'll see at the very end, we have 5, I think, new game wardens on board, and they participated in their first ever game warden academy. We hired Captain Marnie Loftus who was the game warden of Delaware County at Grove to be our training coordinator. She put together a full-blown game warden academy held at Camp Gruber over the span of, unfortunately, they were just coming to the end of that academy when coronavirus broke out. So I was able to go out there and participate in the day where they go through simulations of various situations, and we had our guns loaded up with simulated ammunition, and I had the opportunity to kill 3 of the 4 wardens participating before they could get their guns on me. But I will say that simulated ammunition will definitely break skin. I had a lot of open wounds on me by the time I left that game. So. It was a great academy though. And I think they all said they learned a ton, being put in very stressful situations like that. And I learned a ton just participating in that one day, how intense the job can really be, even with simulated ammunition. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any other questions.
JD, next year or the next time you have a training academy, I assume they have a graduation. Would you let us know in advance?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. There'll be a pinning ceremony. We had to postpone it this year
Right.
because of the coronavirus. So we'll let you know when that happens, and so you all can participate as well. That's a great question.
One other thing, Mr. Chairman, I want to compliment Barry Bolton and his staff. They were notified, they found out about it quicker than I did, that the city of Lawton was going to shut down their lakes, which is Lake Latonk and Lake Ellsworth and a couple cities in Lawton for fishing. And he advised me, and we got busy and got that turned around fairly quickly. And so I really want to thank Barry and his supervisor down here for picking that up pretty quick.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Commissioner. That was Ryan Reiswick, and boy, he deserves a pat on the back for his passion.
Yeah, no doubt. And Commissioner Zelps is trying not to take any credit for it, but let me just say, while Barry and Ryan jumped on the situation and reported it to us, if we didn't have Commissioner Zelps down there making phone calls to city councilmen and stuff, it would not have turned around. So thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, JD, Commissioner Zelps had me on the phone with city council folks and with the mayor, and it all happened pretty fast. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. I'm glad that our constituents could still enjoy the outdoors and keep fishing. It seems like there's been a lot more fishing activity lately, and I kind of like that.
We do too.
Hey, JD, on the controlled hunts, have we extended the deadline at all?
Yes, good question. We did not extend the deadline this year just because we made a commitment this year to do a quick turnaround, a faster turnaround on when the controlled hunts close to when we notify people that they have gotten that they won a controlled hunt. So that'll give them more time to plan their hunting trip. You know, the more we extend it and delay all those things, the more we're squeezing their time to be able to know where they're going and prepare for that trip. So we opted to go in this direction. I did ask our folks to keep monitoring participation in the controlled hunt draws, just to compare to previous years and see if we're seeing a decline or lower numbers. And if so, we would have the option to extend it. But so far, staff is reporting that we're seeing an uptick in people putting in for controlled hunts. So I think now more than ever, they're sequestered at home, and it's a real easy time for them to hop on the computer and put in for those hunts. And people have been doing it, and that's another thing that I&E has been helping us campaign for, just reminding people while you're sitting there at home, spend some time to hop on our website and put in for those controlled hunts.
And when are those dates, JD?
No, I think it's May 15th, right?
Cut off.
And what's
May
the
25th, I believe.
date?
May 25th.
Or is it 22nd?
I didn't quite catch that.
I think Nell said it's May 25th.
For the deadline or for the notification?
For the deadline, and then we committed to notify them pretty shortly on the heels of that, maybe June 1st even, or something like that. I don't know. Nels, I'm looking at you or Micah I don't have that right in front of me. Nels is looking it up. We did change the dates, and they are a little bit later than what we've had in the past already, but.
Yeah, normally it was the 15th, wasn't it?
Right, yeah. So we pushed it off a little later already, but.
Says the application period runs through May 20th.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad somebody looked it up, because all this guessing is gonna confuse us.
JD, one of the questions I seem to get every year is on our draw hunts, instead of having, I think you gain a point every year by putting in, for example, somebody that's put in for 5 years, has 5 chances. Somebody that's put in 10 years has 10 chances. But there's a lot of people that have put in for 20 years or more. And I always get the question, why don't we square those numbers? So if somebody had put in for 5 years, they would get 25 chances. Somebody that's put in for 20 years would get 400 chances. So it's kind of a preference point type system, but a lot of the people never live long enough to ever get to enjoy one of those hunts, particularly the elk hunts is a big concern. Whereas a lot of states have preference points, that type of thing. We don't have that in Oklahoma. So,
Yeah, so we were planning to convene this spring, and coronavirus has kind of pushed it off, but I know there's a lot of interest in revamping our controlled hunts and adding, we talked about, you know, bonus tag hunts, governor tag hunts, grand slam hunts. So our plan was to put together either an ad hoc committee or a working group of like 4 commissioners and some staff, get together and really flesh that stuff out and talk about point insurance. I know Commissioner Morrow was interested in insurance like they have in Arizona and some other states, where if there's, you know, some reason, act of God or whatever, you can't go on your once in a lifetime trip, you don't lose it.
right.
So all those things we would throw on the table, and
Several states have.
yeah. So I think we'll try to do that in that forum, and then by the time we come around to rulemaking next fall, we'll have some proposed changes to take a look at, and won't be in time for fall of 2020 hunts, but at least we can get it into the fall of 2020 rulemaking and run through the process. Sure.
Okay, because oftentimes a lot of the people that don't live long enough.
Right.
They get elderly, physically can't for one reason or another.
You keep looking at me when you say
So.
that. Elderly.
Anyway,
I was just avoiding eye contact.
Thank you for that report, JD. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda will be a resolution before us establishing hunting regulations for migratory birds. Bill Dinkins, thank you, on. You out there, Bill?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as you can read there on the screen, the resolution details, but before I jump into it, I'm gonna give you a little bit of backstory. Josh Richardson, our migratory game bird biologist, along with Corey Yeager and Betsy York, did an extensive waterfowl hunter survey back in the fall of 18. And there were several things they looked at, questions were asked, and a lot of it was zone related, split, no split, move the season later. I mean, there was a lot of things that came out of that, and we got a great response, we felt like, of our state waterfowl hunters. You may also remember it at Commissioner Brewster's request. We had a town hall meeting at Durant in the fall of 18 as well, and well attended. Got a lot of information, a lot of feedback from our waterfowl hunters at that meeting as well. And then this past public hearing agenda, we added a discussion item. And that discussion item was actually the proposal that we'll get into here in a minute in the resolution to get feedback from the public on the proposed changes. So with all that information, staff recommends the following for the 2020 waterfowl seasons, and that is zones 1 and 2 will have the same season dates, and the split will be reduced to 5 days, which means that the opener, it was a 12-day split, and by reducing it to 5 days, we'll push the opener now back a week. which we heard from a lot of folks about that. They wanted that. The season will still run as late as allowed by the Fish and Wildlife Service. Additionally, in March of 19, Senate Bill 47 was signed, which allows each state to open 2 additional days outside of the federal duck season framework for hunting by veterans and active duty personnel. We chose to make these dates the same as our youth waterfowl days, which is the Saturday, the week before the Saturday of the statewide opener for a waterfowl season. And then the following week after waterfowl season closes for everybody else, the following Saturday will be open to veterans and youth. And finally, in accordance with federal harvest strategies for SCOP, the daily limit for SCOP will be reduced from 3 to 1 due to population declines. All the other seasons and structures remain the same and are adjusted for calendar wrap generally to start on a Saturday and end on a Sunday. And I believe the resolution was actually mailed out to y'all or in your packets, so you can see the actual words there of the resolution if you had it handy. But this summarizes the staff recommended proposed changes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the Rules Committee met on the proposed rules and recommends the rules as presented be approved.
Okay. We have a motion. So moved. Second.
Second.
Second by Holder. John Dice. Any further discussion? Not, please call for a vote.
Commissioner Brewster,
Aye.
Commissioner Barwick,
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes,
Aye.
Commissioner Gaddis,
Aye.
Commissioner Zelfs,
Aye.
Commissioner Grondike,
Aye.
Commissioner Holder,
Aye.
Mavry.
Aye. Next on the agenda is a resolution establishing antlerless whitetail deer season and bag limits. Bill Dinkins.
Okay, I believe I'm still unmuted. So we have a continuing resolution that's been in place for a number of years to establish our antlerless deer seasons and bag limits. Based on our recent antlerless harvest levels, staff is recommending additional opportunity for antlerless harvest in terms of altered season bag limits and season dates as appropriate. Don,
PowerPoint.
Don's going to throw a few graphs up real quick, I believe.
Yeah, just give him a minute.
Yeah, while he's working on that, I'll go ahead and talk through some of it. As y'all remember, in the past public hearings, we had some rule change proposals that basically gave the commission authority to increase antlerless bag limits up to 6 deer. Also to adjust the holiday antlerless season as y'all see fit. And you'll see in the resolution here in a minute when we get into the details of what those actual changes look like.
Don, do you need Micah to take over? Micah, why don't you try?
So while they're still digging for the slides, I'm just going to reiterate that this is antlerless deer only. We're not proposing any changes for antler deer.
Yes, important. Right there, before you came in the doors.
Bill, as we go through this, can you remind us where these different zones are located?
Yeah, there's a map in this PowerPoint presentation that we'll put up that will show you that.
I see here with it's attached to the printout. Okay.
Just
JD, if you want, I can go ahead and talk through. Oh, there he goes. I see it coming.
Here it comes.
Next slide, please. There you go. Everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so the thing that's kind of been concerning to our staff is you can see this is the percent of total harvest of antlerless deer. So in 2014, it was 41, 42%. And since then has declined all the way down to 36% in 2018. So one of the things for herd management on a statewide level is we definitely would like to see that percentage increased. Now, obviously there's going to be pockets, let's just say like Beckham County, for example, where that number needs to be raised significantly. There's parts of the state, if you will, like zone 10 and zone 1, not so much. And so we have tailored the resolution to try to address those zone specific type changes. Go ahead, Don. Thank you. So Commissioner Barwick asked in our rules committee about the holiday antlerless season. And so we just put this graph together to illustrate this is actual total harvest during our holiday antlerless season from 2014 through 2018. So on average, if you did an average there, around 3,500 deer are harvested.
Bill, do you have any reason why in 2017 there was a spike?
You know, I don't, Jim. Jerry's on here, he might, but as we know in December, the weather is probably as big a factor of participation as anything. So maybe something happened there in 17 where it was a little milder weather and folks were able to get out more.
Bill, do you have the numbers for the 2019?
2019 are coming in. They still to be scrubbed out a little bit by our staff. We did see a little increase in 2019, which is a good thing overall. So.
Commissioner Barwick, this is Jerry Shaw. Yes, sir, usually this antlerless season, the holiday antlerless season is highly dependent on weather. My estimation without actually going back and looking at the records is we just had some fantastic weekend weather that got hunters out in the field and active. So usually it's based on weather that time of year.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Don, if you want to throw the zone up, I will go ahead and start through the summary that y'all is actually on your agenda. We thought it'd be a little simpler to follow along there. In summary, the following changes are proposed. So zone 1 proposal is to increase to allow antlerless hunting all 16 days of the deer gun season with a 1 antlerless bag limit, and it's whitetails only. It was the first and the last day only. So we're increasing opportunity there, but we're not changing the bag limit in zone 1. Mule deer does are still off limits. Zone 2, 7, and 8, we're proposing to double the antlerless bag limit from 2 to 4 for muzzleloader and gun season. The special holiday antlerless season will be extended from 10 days to 14 days, which will make it run from December 18th through the end of the month, through the 31st of December. The holiday antlerless bag limit will be increased from 1 to 2. Zones 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9. We will double or propose to double the antlerless bag limit for muzzleloader and gun season from 1 to 2. The special holiday antlerless season will be extended from 10 to 14 days and run through the end of December. And the holiday antlerless bag limit will be increased from 1 to 2 as well in those zones. Zone 10 will increase opportunity to allow antlerless harvest all 16 days of the gun season. The bag limit for this zone will remain at 1 antlerless deer for muzzleloader and 1 antlerless deer for gun season. So no change in the bag for zone 10. Zone 1 and zone 10, I like this. We're trying to simplify regulations as much as we can. So that will make those zones the same. All 16 days of the gun season now will be an opportunity to take does or antlerless deer. So in zone 10, it was, just so you know, was the 3 weekends, or it was only 6 days before. It was the only days you could take an antlerless deer in zone 10 during rifle season. So it's important to note that in all management zones, all deer taken count towards the hunter's combined regular season limit of 6 deer. Antlerless deer taken during the special holiday season are bonus deer and do not apply towards the hunter's regular season bag limit. So to sum up that, the bag limit is still for the regular season 6. If you participate in the special holiday antlerless season, you could kill 2 more. So it could be a total of 8 deer for those zones with that open season, which is basically 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Couple of other thoughts, and then I'll take some questions, is there may be places, and I mentioned Beckham County, that may need a little additional antlerless harvest on a local population. We still have our damage control assistant permits that we can issue. The game wardens can issue them, the biologists can issue them for a local landowner that might have an local overpopulation of deer. And those tags or permits are good during muzzleloader rifle and the holiday antlerless season. So they're basically could be bonus deers on top of the statewide season for those permits. So only other thing I will add is that obviously these changes, we're hopeful that our hunters and our landowners will allow access for more antlerless harvests where needed. And a big piece of this puzzle will be we'll have to lean on our information and education division and really help promote and campaign for antlerless harvest. So I believe Nels has a few things to add on that end, unless y'all have any questions about some of the zones. I'll be glad to answer those.
Any further questions for Bill Dinkins? Not, but ask for a vote.
You want Nels to cover last
Yeah.
couple slides real quick on
Okay.
marketing, and then if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
Nels.
Yeah, Don, would you forward to the next slide? Appreciate that, and thanks, Bill. We do believe that good policy and good communication go hand in hand. We need, at the end of the day, we need hunters, to shoot the antlerless deer. And so in this case, we actually have a playbook. It's a little bit old. 2001, we started the Hunters in the Know Take a Doe campaign. Next slide, Don. What we also know is we stay on message for a while, and we grind on a particular topic. As you can see, 2001 to 2006, we're 5 years into the campaign, and you can see the impact in doe harvest. Next slide, Don. So these long track campaigns, we're going to go back to that playbook, but we have a lot of new plays in the playbook. Social media has come about, and so we're going to put together a comprehensive package that really focuses on a very specific goal, increasing antlerless deer harvest. If we were to look at 3 to 5% in this first year, that represents around 4,000 additional antlerless deer. We're going to continue to work with Wildlife Division going forward to adjust that goal, assuming we're successful in year one. Our crew is excited about this opportunity because when we have a very specific campaign, we're trying to get very specific actions to be taken. Those are measurable, and we can really dig in on that. And I would be glad to take questions too. One thing to back up on the controlled hunts, we did confirm the 20th, Wednesday the 20th is the deadline to apply. Friday, May 29th is the deadline when we'll be putting out information, or license will be on successful applicants.
And you may recall, I think we used to close it middle of May and then report it like in July or something. It used to take that long to crank through all the manual lottery stuff. So this new system that we have allows us to turn it around and report it in 9 days. Any questions for Bill about the zones, the proposals, increased bag limits, or Nels about the communication campaign that we'll tack on to try to drive people into hunting more does?
I think in connection with that campaign that Nels just described, which I think is a positive move, we should be thinking about how to make it easier for people that harvest these does, have a place to take them and help feed the hungry. And I think Wade Free had some good ideas on that. And I'd like to see those things explored more and maybe come up with some kind of plan and then implement that in with the new ad campaign, because a lot of people let them go because they just, let's say they've already taken two. That's enough for their family. You know, they don't want to take anymore. So I think if we have a source for these people to go with these does, and I know we have some areas where we can drop them off, but I just don't think we have enough of those.
Yeah, no, that's right. I don't know if Wade Free has anything to add on that, but that definitely is a challenge. And we're a little bit limited because, you know, it's not like we're going to pay somebody to build a processing facility and turn it over to them and all that kind of stuff. But we're definitely looking at additional options, whether it's partnering with FFA chapters around the state to see if they want to do this as a fundraising project, like selling blue and gold sausage. And that was one of Wade's ideas. I've been in contact, although the communication has slowed down during COVID, but I've been in contact with the head of corrections about, for instance, the prison at Sayre. Do they want to teach inmates how to and set them up with a little processing facility? And that would be a place for all those farmers and ranchers out in Beckley County. Although the thought of them having knives to carve up the meat, I understand, is disconcerting. I've heard that, but
Unless they're in for poaching.
yeah, exactly. So we're looking at some of those things, and I don't know if Wade has anything to add.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Now we hear you.
Yeah, you know, one of my ideas was, and we haven't done it yet, if we could reach out on the state level to, I'm not sure who's in charge now. I know we've helped with the ag mechanics thing with FFA and the OYE and all that, but maybe, you know, if we could incentivize some of these FFA or 4-H chapters to start processing, you know, in local communities for fundraisers. FFA and 4-H chapters are always working on programs from blue and gold to whatever, you know, to fund their programs. And I think we had a potential lead in the Southwest. Commissioner Holder, maybe you had a contact and we were kind of following up on that, but it's hard to, you know, convince somebody they need to be in the deer processing business. But for groups like FFA and 4-H, I think if we reached out to some of their head leaders, we might be able to get something started. But I agree, it's hard to keep processing plants in the business. And right now that's the bottleneck. So we've got a program in place. We just don't have enough outlets for cutting that meat up. So welcome
Wade,
any new ideas.
Wade, what I lost connection there for a few minutes. You may have mentioned or somebody. What does a mobile processing plant cost?
We haven't looked in it that far. We have looked at setting up refrigerated, reefers in communities where we could gather up harvested deer. Some of the landowners are still having problems with not wanting to, typically on depredation issues where they're killing a lot of deer, it wouldn't be a problem with most hunters, but where they could take those deer and put them in a freezer trailer, and then we could take them to somewhere local, Oklahoma City, Edmond, wherever, and have them processed. We even looked at hauling some to Texas, but CWD shut us down there. But I made a comment, if my kids were still in FFA and this was going on in my county, they'd have their chapters would have a little processing facility, at a $75 to $100 a deer, and Beckham County alone killed 600 plus. That's pretty good money for your local FFA chapters, and most kids would, tear that up and really they're interested in that kind of stuff.
Wait, how does an existing processing plant get set up to participate in Hunters for the Hungry or one of those? And what is a typical reimbursement for them doing it?
75 or 70, 75, but we were talking $100 if that was an additional incentive, and all they have to do is grind the meat, so they don't have to do special cuts or anything.
Huh. Wow.
Wade,
What's it take for somebody to get into the program was his other question, Wade.
Oh yeah, it's an application process. Becky Rounder administers that program, and it's just the contact info, and she'll get you everything. We've also done some proactive publications and posters and outreach stuff through I&E and Becky too. So we're always in the hunt for processors. That's our bottleneck.
Hey Wade, this is Commissioner Holder. Have we reached out to the food bank to see if they'd be interested in putting in a small processing, mainly just a grinding facility in the FFA chapters could get them to could take it straight there and they could grind it and package it? Would they entertain anything like that?
I think the food pantries are the key. The food banks so far haven't really wanted to jump in much. They kind of coordinate some of this, but when it gets to boots on the ground or hands on the meat stuff, I haven't seen any interest, but it's like pushing a rope.
Right.
Is there a meat processing school in Oklahoma?
At one time OSU had a school and a plant out somewhere, Burns Flat or somewhere on the group might know where that was. But right now, I don't know if any universities or any VOTEX or anything like that teach that. That could be important.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. We should add it to the list, see if we can get somebody interested in teaching.
Yeah, just for fun stats. I mean, if we're killing 100 and some thousand deer a year and we're pushing for 50% doe harvest, that's a lot of dead does. So it's getting serious. And the more we push this doe harvest, the more demand there is. So we've got to work on this processing angle.
I did tee that up with the president of Southwestern just because they've got that Sayre campus. Again, that Sayre area is really the hotbed for it, and they just didn't bite on it. So maybe we need to take another round.
There's a lot of people on this meeting they're in the same boat. I'm the same way. There's a lot of times I don't take a doe when I should because I just don't want to mess with it. But if I had a place where I could harvest that thing, gut it, and drop it off on my way home, I would deliver it. And so I put it off like a lot of us do.
I know most of the church pantries willingly accept processed meat. I've taken several deer and elk to our church pantry. If there was a way to get it from the processor to the churches that have pantries by delivery, maybe our personnel could do that somewhat.
Right. So
church has a pantry. I mean, most every community has a food pantry.
Yeah, we need to work on some outreach to look for alternative ways to process venison.
This is Nels. I was just going to mention Kelly, excuse me, Kelly and Becky did an outreach effort last year that resulted in almost a 40% increase, which sounds like a lot, but because of the low numbers, it wasn't a huge number of processors, but they did increase the number of Hunters Against Hunger processors by 40%. And we'll pull that plan out that they had and look at it again, and see some of the other things. There was some personal contact piece, actually going out and talking to these processors. That's also a place where we could probably get some better work done.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good effort.
You know, different entities out there. I mean, even foundations might sponsor, you know, financially money to a processing plant to pay for the processing, and then it'd be up to maybe our department to get it delivered to food banks or church pantries possibly. But the funding could come from foundations. There's always foundations looking for, you know,
Well,
place of money.
it seems to me there's a lot of hungry people for whatever reason it is, and we sure ought to find a way to get it to them if we can. I really like this idea of this refrigerated trucks and, you know, then hauling it to the processor. Was it our thought that we would pay the processors per deer to help them out of this, or?
That's what we do in our Hunters Against Hunger program. We typically pay $70 to $75 per deer for them to process it and donate it for the hungry. Yeah.
So have we looked into refrigerated trucks or trailers?
Mobile processors. Is that what you're talking about?
No, if we could just refrigerate or take the carcass and refrigerate it until we had a trailer full and then take it to the processors.
Yeah.
Just haul it to them.
Yeah, we actually have looked at that, and we looked at that out in the Sayre situation, and we even had, I think it was American Farmers and Ranchers was willing to line up a reefer truck to park out there for people to fill it up, and they were going to haul it over to Yukon, was going to be the closest place to get it processed in the off season, because it's off season, it still didn't. They still didn't bite. Those farmers didn't want to have to field dress them, period, much less drag them wherever this reefer truck is set up 20 miles away. Anyway, for this to work, it's going to take work on the part of a lot of people, not just the Department of Wildlife. That's what we have discovered in this process. And so while, you know, we're willing to try to line up additional resources and help, we kind of like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink kind of analogy. So we'll see. But I think everybody's right in that we need to, you know, continue to chip away at this stuff and see if we can get some additional facilities out there, additional training out there. All very good points that have been brought up today. So
I think that's kind of what Wade was saying. I would think some of these school organizations would, if they could make a little money, they might go get them out of the field and field dress them and get them delivered somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, to me, if they could make a little money out of it, I think they'd be the pickup guys. What I'm hearing you say is that they want to shoot them and just leave them where they're laying, and I don't think we can do that.
Right. Well, at the end of the day, the ultimate solution is to allow more hunters on the property. I mean, a hunter's not gonna want payment. He's not gonna worry about, I mean, he's happy to field dress it and throw it in the back of the truck and take it home, or maybe donate it if they don't need it anymore. So allowing more hunting access is, you know, the ultimate solution if we can get there.
Well, I can understand the producer's dilemma also, having somebody drive all over his peanut fields. And, you know, that might be a problem also.
Yeah, I wish we had a way to come up with a program that could link individuals or families to hunter contacts, maybe in a county, where I go to a website or I go to a link and I can find out, because my family's starving, that Commissioner Zelps has 4 does, pick them up in the barn, Monday at 8 o'clock.
Right.
That'd be one way to do it locally versus trying to do it in mass quantities. But if there's a way like, some of these other programs where hunters are linked to, landowners or guides or outfitters or whatever it might be, linking hunters and people wanting to meet. There's a lot of people in Oklahoma City that don't even know a hunter that would take it if they knew about it.
Well, I think we've got the IT department. Why don't we develop something? Let's get outside the box. I think not only it's the right thing to do, I think we would draw a lot of applause for developing a program like this.
Yeah. And the locavore movement, those folks would probably eat it up if they could go to a list and find out where they could pick up some deer. But
Yes.
Just out of the box thought.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's do it, Wade. Let's get it up. Let's try to get it together.
Well, there's a lot of discussion in this regard, so it's probably a good idea for us, maybe Nels and his group could try to put something together for us in the coming months that might work. We better take care of a lot of these antlerless deer. I think people don't mind shooting them. They just got to find a place to properly get them processed and distributed out to our sportsmen. So.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, the Rules Committee met on the proposed deer rules and recommends the rules as presented be approved.
I'll second your motion.
So we're going to second discussion.
I'll make the motion. Yeah.
Okay. I'll second it.
Thank you. Roll call.
Commissioner Brewster.
Aye.
Mr. Garwick.
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes.
Aye.
Commissioner Gaddis.
Aye.
Commissioner Zelps.
Aye.
Commissioner Grondike.
Aye.
Commissioner Holder.
Aye.
Commissioner Mabry.
Aye. Next item on the agenda is take action on a new full-time position for voting access shooting range coordinator, J.D. Strong. J.D.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're obviously very cautious about adding new FTE. We have brought to you in the past year a couple of additional FTE in the wildlife division to help work several of the new properties that have been purchased and brought online over the course of the last several years. This one we bring to you today because we have, over the past 5 years in particular, the federal government has put more sport fish money into boating access projects, which is a grant program that allows us to pay at a 75% federal, 25% non-federal matching rate for boating access projects across the state. Typically, these projects are a partnership with a community to put in a new boat ramp or a new fishing dock, that sort of thing, provide additional boating access for those communities. And we, at this point, with this new money coming in, have seen a huge influx of interest in communities across the state that want to take advantage of this, which is great for us, great problem for us to provide additional fishing access and boating access for people. But right now we've got one of our fisheries biologist supervisors, Kirk Kuklinski, who's based at the Fisheries Research Lab in Norman, splitting time between trying to coordinate all the boating access projects, help running the fish lab at Norman, and being in charge of all fisheries research, coordinating all fisheries research projects at the same time. So he's spinning a lot of plates and simply can't keep up. So by the same token, in the last couple of years, and in particular with Congress's passage of the Target Marksmanship Act last year, we've got a huge new pot of money coming in on the Pittman-Robertson side that's dedicated to shooting range development. And with the passage of that law last year, that has gone to a 90% federal, 10% non-federal match. So it's a really attractive and lucrative program for us to put in shooting ranges across the state. Again, Lance Meeks in I&E division is in charge right now of coordinating those shooting range development projects, but he's also our hunter ed coordinator, making sure that all of our online hunter ed and in-person hunter ed, and he's of course helps run a lot of our shotgun shooting sports and archery in the schools, shooting competitions. And so he's juggling a lot of balls too. So Wade has been working diligently with both the fisheries side of things, I&E on the shooting range stuff, our federal aid section, which all of these monies come through, as well as HR to develop a new job description here. We thought rather than, even though we probably have the workload to justify having a separate boating access coordinator and a separate shooting range coordinator, we thought it might be best to start with one person that's kind of in charge of it all, house them in federal aid, and see what the workload is for that one person before we came back to you asking for to sort of separate the job. But it'll take a lot of the same sort of skill sets and expertise for that combined position. It's a person that not only needs to be able to learn how to navigate the whole federal aid process, but also has some skill in overseeing construction projects, whether it's a boating access project or a shooting range project. So that'll be the kind of person we're looking for this job. Wade, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
No, that was very good. I might add, in talking to Barry and Nels on the boating access, Barry and the shooting range Nels, we've got about $3 million a year available for ranges and $1 million coming in on the boating access side. And there's a mandate on the fish side that, a percentage of our federal has to be spent on these projects. So what we've been lacking is capacity. It's pretty hard to manage that kind of a funding part-time when the two guys that have been doing it have a real job. So if we're going to do this right, and it's a perfect fit and timing for R3. I mean, if you've got boating access on the fish side and shooting ranges on the other, it's a perfect fit right now, and the money's there. So really, the table's set. And the other thing is on the shooting side. Truth is, right now, shooters are putting more into the conservation machine than hunters, actually. So it's, the timing's perfect. And if we can make it go with this halftime position, half shooting range, half boating access coordinator with the new FT, it's a win for everybody.
How many new positions have we created this year?
I might point out too, when what's that?
He asked, Commissioner Zelps asked a question, how many new positions within this fiscal year, of course, none for the year 2020, but in this past fiscal year, did we do the additional wildlife biologist and technician job in this fiscal year? Wade or Amanda? I think we did. So this might be the third FTE that we've added for this fiscal year.
And the two people you had in your director's report yesterday, were private lands folks.
Private lands biologists, those are existing positions.
That were empty that you just filled.
Correct. So I think, unless Amanda jumps in or Wade jumps in and corrects me, that this would be the third FTE created within this fiscal year.
I think that's right, because we had two come along when we purchased property.
Correct. Yeah, we got them for Sam Boy.
Yeah, part of the taking better care of what we own. If we're going to buy it, we need to have somebody managing it. So yeah.
Wade, who would that position report to? Two different people or just one?
Well, that was one of the challenges, and it would report to Andrea in federal aid. A large part of that position is the federal state paperwork and grant writing and reporting and all that, project statements. So it would report to Andrea, who I supervise. So I'll be involved in it in pretty good detail all along as well.
Okay.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I think one important thing was whether it be a boat ramp or shooting ranges is to have it not be the best kept secret in the county which they're going in. I think that we ought to be notifying the two major newspapers across the world, the Oklahoman, anytime we put in, especially a shooting range, because we spend a considerable amount of money and they are very attractive. And we've had a few go in the past few years. We've got one going in right now in Oklahoma County. But I think we ought to really have a dedication, kind of a ribbon cutting, that type of ceremony. And run in the newspapers, let people know where it is, how you get to it, and come see it. Because we haven't really had any, what you'd call class shooting ranges or new shooting ranges in years and years. So to me, this is a great opportunity to get the news out and kind of show those shooting ranges off.
Yeah.
I agree with that. That's a good point. And it's a great way to, further promote R3 and promote the department and, get our brand out there. People love to fish and they love to shoot, and they got to have places to do it. And yeah, it'd be very popular. It's a good
I think pretty good coverage when we had the grand opening at Lexington that a number of you participated in. We had a planned one for this commission meeting. We were going to go to Panhandle State and have the grand opening of their shooting range this afternoon, although we of course postponed it to the fall given the situation we're in. But the plan there is to have a big to-do. I'm sure it'll get covered well, at least in that area. And
but good coverage on Paul George.
Yeah, right. With Paul George fishing dock grand opening got covered really well, for sure. Yeah.
Any other questions? Concerns?
I heard somebody, was it Amanda?
Yeah, I was just checking with Vicki because I've only been here since December, so I wasn't sure on the positions prior to me getting here, but she thinks 2 techs and a bio assistant chief and this one. So 5 new positions this fiscal year.
Wait, she thinks what? I'm sorry, you kind of broke up.
She thinks there's been 5 new positions this fiscal year. I checked with Vicki. So 2 techs, 1 bio, an assistant chief, and then this one.
Yeah, the assistant chief wasn't a new one though.
Right.
It's existing. So we had a biologist and 2 technicians approved. That's right. I forgot. In addition to the bio and tech for Samboy, we added a tech to help cover down there around the Fog Bottom and those areas, right? Phil Dinkins.
Arbuckle Springs.
Arbuckle Springs, that was it. Okay, yeah, another new one we brought online. And then this one would be the 4th.
And then Vicki said that the assistant chief was new FTE because it was wasn't reallocated from another one.
Okay.
I'd move to approve the hiring of a new full-time position for boating access and shooting range coordinator.
Second.
Motion by Zell, we have a second.
Second by Gaddis.
Second by Gaddis. Discussion. Being none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Brewster.
Aye.
Commissioner Barwick.
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes.
Aye.
Commissioner Gaddis.
Aye.
Commissioner Zelps.
Aye.
Commissioner Grondike.
Aye.
Commissioner Holder.
Aye.
Commissioner Mabry.
Next item on the agenda is appointment for a nominating committee for District 21 for the slate of officers. This time I'd ask if John Zelps, would you accept the appointment to chair that committee, John?
Yes, sir, I will.
Okay, and also ask that you secure 2 other commissioners to be on that committee with you, and you'll give us a report, I believe, in the June.
Yes, sir, I'll do that.
Okay, thank you for accepting that. Under new business, is there discussion of any matter not known about or which could not been reasonably foreseen 24 hours prior to the scheduled meeting?
Not that I know of.
Our next regular scheduled meeting is June 1st, 2020, at 9 a.m. in Oklahoma City Commission office.
And hopefully by then, if everything is on track, we will be able to have another in-person meeting at the June 1st meeting. We'll just have to continue to follow developments and see. But on the current track, we're on a pretty good track. So.
Okay, thanks for your attendance, and adjourn this meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.